So the first thing you're going to want to do is open up Discord and go to the club server in the workshop chat. I posted the link to the website right here. So if you go to our Stu.org page on the downloads page, see up here, Unity Skeletal Animations Asset Pack. You want to download that zip folder. So if you click the link, it should lead you to a box. And then you should be able to hit download. I think I set it up right so you don't have to sign in or anything. Maybe not. Oh, yeah. Okay. And then once you get that done, if you want to open up Unity, and then we will be creating a new project. I am going to use 2022. I think with skeletal animations, they're all roughly the same. The user interface is just going to look a little different if you use a different version. But they all should have like the same buttons basically. Make sure you hit 2D, as we will be making a 2D skeletal animation, and then you can name it whatever you'd like. And then hit create. In the meantime, if you're waiting for this to start, one thing we could do quick is if you go to your downloads, you can go ahead and unzip the skeletal animations folder, or extract it, I guess, whatever. Just put that in there, because we'll eventually import this into Unity. We will keep moving. So the next thing we want to do quick is just import that folder that we downloaded. So assuming you've extracted it, I think the easiest way to do it is just to drag and drop into this project window down here. It should say assets. You can just take that folder and it should automatically copy it into here. And then, just for convenience, I'm actually going to take what's inside of it and just put that directly into the assets folder. And then, don't need that anymore. Doesn't matter where it is, you can organize it however you'd like. But I think this is everything that we should need. I left it named character 2. I'm just going to name it character. But there's this sprite here. So this is what we're going to do most of the work on in order to set up skeletal animations. So hopefully if you're here, you already know what a skeletal animation is. If you don't, I can explain it quickly. But it has each of these different limbs, each of these different body parts, and what you're going to do is you're going to put like fake or like bones on them. So each bone is going to kind of link itself to each part of the texture. So like the head is going to have a bone in it, and the body will have a bone as well as the arms. And then once it connects to it, it will bend and stretch that texture to make it look like it's actually like kind of moving its arms and legs around. So when it comes to animation, sometimes this is a little easier than drawing each animation by hand, because all you need to do is draw something like this, maybe a little better. I just threw this together in like 5 minutes, so. But you just draw like each arm once, each leg once, the body and the head, and then every animation uses just these sprites. So you only have to, it's way less art. But if you do like pixel art, it wouldn't look that good because it's going to bend and stretch it. It's got to be something more higher definition. So why don't we get started? So the first thing we're going to want to do is change a few of the import settings on the sprite. So after you click on it here in the project window, we're going to want to change the mesh type to full rect here. And then I'm also, these aren't necessary, but I'm also going to change the filter mode to point, and change the format down here into RGBA 32-bit. And that's just because the resolution of the picture is pretty small. It's only 256 by 256, so this will just make it look not blurry. The full rect, this is needed for actually doing the skeletal animations though. Once you've done all that, hit apply, and then we will go into the sprite editor. Okay, so once we're in here, we're actually not going to split up the sprite as I originally thought when I did this. This is all fine and dandy. We're actually going to go on the top left and hit this drop down, and we're going to change it from the sprite editor to the skinning editor. This is what we will be using. So the skinning editor is a little different. It just kind of lets you, it's specifically meant for this actually. As you can see on the left now, there's a bunch of options. We have like create bone, split bone, geometry, and weights, different things. So now what we're going to do is we're going to have it generate geometry. This is basically splitting it up. If you go to auto geometry here on the left, you can see it kind of has like a little template here. We're just going to hit in the bottom right, it says generate for all visible. Hit that button. It'll load for a couple seconds. I have these all changed. But there's a couple of sliders. There's outline detail, subdivide, and then alpha tolerance. Alpha tolerance doesn't really matter too much. We'll just kind of ignore it. But these change how many different like vertices and how many like times it splits it up. And so what this is going to do is that the more detail and the more times it subdivides, the more fluid the animation is going to look when it stretches it. So like right now, basically how it's going to work is each of these different lines and points is going to be like where it kind of stretches like in between. And so if you think about this like arm bending, right, it's going to look a little weird if there's only a few points. But if you increase the outline detail, as well as the subdivide, that'll kind of help a little bit with like making it look more fluid and like actually kind of bending a little more than it just like bending it like a piece of paper. It actually kind of look like an arm bending. You can slide these all the way up to 100 if you'd like. Generally I wouldn't recommend that just because like unless you're really having problems with it looking weird. This is a lot of math calculations that Unity has to do, so if you have lots of things all using the same animations, generally you wouldn't want to do this. You'd probably want something a little lower, like basically whatever is the lowest you can go without it looking weird. I'll just kind of do something in the middle for the sake of this tutorial. Yeah, and hopefully it splits them all up. As you can see, there's like no crossover between the arms and the hands and head and stuff. Okay, so next we will actually create the bones. So if you go over here and hit create bone, okay, so once you hit create bone, just kind of like double click on the body or something, and it should like outline all of them in orange. And then now we will actually kind of like lay the bones out on them. There's kind of a structure of how you should do this, like an order. The first bone you place is going to be like the base bone. Like that's where everything is going to be centered around or like connected to. So generally speaking, try to put the base bone like in the body. That's what I do. Just because like the legs are connected to the body, your arms are connected to the body, the head is connected to the body. Like that is this kind of like this centered node of like a human. Might be a little different if you're doing like an animal or something. But the way that you do that is once you double click, it has the orange outline, just kind of click like down on the bottom, and then it'll have this like line thing that you will click one more time at the top. And then you'll see now there's a yellow one connecting to it. So it created the red bone and now there's a yellow one. If you right click, that will release it so it won't be linked to that anymore. So now we have just a bone on the body itself. And if we want to create another bone, there's a couple ways of doing it. If it's connected here at the end, these bones will have like a joint in between them, but we kind of don't want that with the body, just because of like, we're not going to have it bend really. It makes more sense. It'll make more sense with the arms and stuff. But what we want to do for the head, for example, is we want to kind of link this to the body, but we don't necessarily want them to be like part of one limb, I guess. So the way that you do that is just click like in the middle of this red bone that we created, and you'll see now there's like a semi-transparent like yellow beam coming from it, and that's how you know that it's linking to it. And then you can go in the head and do that same thing you did with the body. Click at the bottom, go to the top, click, and then you can right click, and it will have that yellow bone, and you can see how it links to the red bone. And so what that does basically is that semi-transparent line is a static like distance and rotation from that body bone. So once we move the body parts around later, it'll make a little more sense, because you'll see the head kind of stays at the neck area and it won't move around like from that point. It'll rotate, but it will not like, I guess like rotate around the player. It'll stay in place. So next, let's do one of the arms. So the arms, we're going to have two bones inside of them, because like an actual arm has like two bones with the joint in the middle. So the way that we do that is going to be similar to the body. So if it's not linking already, just go ahead and click on this red bone. It should be green or some other color. And then we will click at the top of the arm, just because that's where it's connected to the body. Just kind of like right here. And then you go down about halfway in the arm and click. So that'll create the top part of the arm. And then it'll create another bone. So now we'll go down and click at the bottom. And then you will right click to like cancel out. And so that makes two bones on the arm. And it has that joint in the middle between the two bones, since they're connected, so we'll be able to bend it later. So now we want to also connect this hand to it. So if you right click, again, it'll disconnect from that red bone. And now we actually want to link it to the end of this arm. So you want the hand to be directly connected to the arm, right? Because if it was connected to the body, then when the arm moves, the hand wouldn't follow. So if you, again, click in the middle of this lower part of the bone, or the arm, it'll have this link. And then just kind of like top to bottom, click, right click to cancel. And we'll have a bone within the hand. So you basically kind of follow this process for every body part. I'm just going to kind of step through them a little faster this time. Hopefully it makes a little sense to you. So I'll click on this body bone again and do the same, repeat the same process with the other arm. I'm not going to be totally perfect with where I place them. Obviously, if you're making a real game, you might want to spend a little more time on polish, just so it doesn't look a little off. But again, click on this bottom part of the arm so it links to it. And then we will create that bone hand. All right, so got that arm. Now I'm going to do the legs quick. So kind of the same process. Want to link to the body. And then the leg, because the feet are also connected, I'm actually going to put 3 bones inside of it, just so we have one that's also controlling the foot. So I'll start at the top, just because that's where it connects to the body. Go about halfway for the knee, down towards the bottom, and then one outwards, which is where the foot will be. And then right click to cancel. Should still be linking to the body, so then we can repeat that same process with the other leg. Down about halfway to the ankle, and then out. And then go ahead and right click a couple of times to cancel out once you're done. So once you've done all that, we've pretty much set up all the bones. But now we need to actually tell it to link to the sprite itself. So the way we do that is the weights. Last section we haven't really touched here. So if you go ahead and click on auto weights, now it's outlined in cyan. And in the bottom right, we just hit the generate button. And this should be good enough for our purposes. As you can see, it kind of highlights everything in different colors according to the bone. And what this is showing you is about like how much influence each bone has on each part of the body. So for like the body itself, the torso, it's going to be all red because just that bone is like controlling it basically. Same with the head, but like with the arms, you can see like this goes from green to cyan. And in the middle here, it's a little bit of a blend. So this is telling you that like in the middle, when this bone rotates or moves around, it's going to have like 50% of the influence on this texture and how it manipulates it during the animations. So most of the time, the auto one should be fine. But say that like something isn't acting right, and you say that like this lower bone is bending it too much or something, there is a way to manually change it, which is the weight brush. I'm not totally going to go over how to use this, but you just kind of select the bone that you want to paint with, and then you can like draw on here and automatically like make it more cyan so this bone has more control. I haven't had many situations where I've used this, but it is something just to so you're aware about it in case you need to. So once you've hit auto weights, now they are linked together. I'm going to hit apply really quick just to save our changes. And then I'm going to go to the preview pose up here at the top. And now you can see that all the bones are here. And this is where we can just kind of like lay it all out so we know that it's all hooked up correctly. So if you go to the bottom, this like little circle at the end of the body bone, you should be able to drag it all around and they should be all linked together like this. And you should be able to do that with all the bones. So I'm going to try to like arrange them in such a way that would resemble what the actual character would look like. The arms, doesn't really matter which one is which, I guess. I mean, it would normally if you actually have like designated left and right arms. This character is not that detailed though. Same with the legs. Kind of drag them into place. Drag the base of this one. Okay, so now we got a little guy here. And if you can see, so say with this cyan bone here, if you click not on the circle, kind of like lower down, it'll actually let you rotate it. And as you can see, what I pointed out earlier, it's bending on this like point here on the side of the geometry. So if this was a higher number of vertices here, it wouldn't quite bend like as much like it is here. It would look a little more fluid. But it is bending the sprite, and this bone is like controlling it, as well as like it's still connected to this one. It's going to look a little weird if you go all the way around, obviously, because like in real life your bones hopefully don't do that. But the one thing we want to focus on right now is the order. So normally if you have like these split up into different sprites, you'd have to be worried about like the head not appearing above the body. Maybe it's not appearing in the correct spot for you. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to like kind of modify those. In the top right, there should be a visibility tool button, as long as you are in the newest version. If not, there's other ways of doing this as well. But there should be some way to show like kind of a list of all the bones. So if we click on a bone, like I'm going to leave the body, but say that we the head. We want the head to appear above the body, but it also needs to be like behind the front arm and some other things. So I've already like gotten all the numbers for these. But if you click on it and then in the bottom right, you should be able to edit the depth. The depth is basically just the sprite sorting layer that you would have on normal sprites. So the higher the number is, the closer to the camera it is, and the lower the number, the farther away it is from the camera. So in this case, the head should be 3. And that'll make it appear above the body as well as the legs, which I guess never would really interact, but you never know. I'm going to change this green bone and the cyan bone. So if I hold Control and then click on both on the cyan, or yeah, click on the green bone and then hold Control and click on the cyan bone, it'll select both of them. And then you can edit them both at the same time, kind of. Anyways, I'm going to set those both to -2. And then change that hand to -1. And then this leg here is going to be set to 1. It'll be all 3 parts of the body. And then the left leg is going to be set to 2, just because we want it to appear above the other leg in case they cross over. And then this left arm is going to be set to 4, just because it's the closest thing to the camera. And then this hand thing is going to be set to 5, so it appears above the arm. Then once you've done that, then hopefully, like if you slide the right arm around, it'll disappear behind the body, and like this leg appears above it, to a point where it kind of makes sense. And you're welcome to modify those however you'd like. But once you've done that, I'm going to hit Apply up here. And we've pretty much done everything inside the skinning editor here. We've set up all the bones, we've linked them to the textures, so now we need to actually implement them in Unity inside the actual engine. So I'm going to exit out of here. Okay, so luckily Unity has a bunch of built-in stuff, so this should be pretty easy. I'm just going to take this sprite from the assets and just drag it into the scene view. And appear right here. So now if you click on the character in the hierarchy, I'm going to add a couple of components to it that are needed for skeletal animations. So the first one is a skinned mesh renderer. And so what this does is it's going to change the sprite renderer to kind of match that skinning editor like stuff that we just did. So as the bones move around, it'll redraw this character so that the body parts are in the correct locations. You don't need to modify anything inside the skin mesh renderer. It should be already good as default values. So I'm just going to minimize that so it's out of the way. The other component we need to add is the sprite skin. And then this is what actually controls the bones and stuff like that. If you look at the icon, it's got like a little bone inside of it. So luckily for us, there's a button that says Create Bones. And since we've already done all the work on the sprite, all you have to do is click that button. It'll automatically generate a bunch of bones on top of these sprites here that you can see in the within the editor, which is very nice. But as you can see, they're still in this like default position, so we'll have to rearrange them how we did kind of before in the editor, because that was preview mode before. This is the actual like layout of them, I guess. But it works the same. Click the base bone in the body. That'll kind of drag everything around, and then you can click the bottom of each bone to kind of drag them into place. And as long as you put the same arms in the same spots, all of those depth values that we modified earlier should line up correctly. Oh, gotta put those hands. Okay. All we have to do from this point is set up the animations itself. So I actually already put in the animator in here, but we can actually make the animation together So if you want to add another component to the character, again by selecting it in the hierarchy, and go to add component. And this one time we're going to add the animator. And then there's this first box here. It says controller. One of the things from the folder is the animator controller. Might hide part of the name, just say animator, but that's fine. If you want to drag and drop that into where it says controller, that way we can link that animator controller to this character. So now we actually need the animation window so that we can actually do the animation. So if you go to window in the top bar, and then you go down to animation, and then animation again, it'll pop up with the animation window here. I recommend, if you have the default layout right now like me, you can just put it like down on the bottom, I guess. It doesn't really matter, as long as you can see both the scene view and the animation tab at the same time. You'll need both of them. And then, okay, well I guess the animator, okay, so the animator didn't quite set up right either. That's fine. So other thing we need to do is put this animation into the actual animator. So if you go to the animator controller that we dragged earlier and just double click on it, should open up the animator tab, which is a little different from animation. And you'll see these boxes here. If you click on running, this is just the default animation that we're going to have. We're going to like kind of animate this guy doing quick, just as an example. So if you take the running animation thing that is here, the triangle thing, you can drag that into where it says motion. And now it'll say the motion is running. So basically all this is doing is the animator, when the game starts, it will automatically just start running this animation forever. Just so we can see it's working. Normally you would probably have a bunch of other different stuff, but and then one other thing too is if you want to click on the running animation in the project tab, we're going to enable loop time, and that just makes it so the animation will loop over and over. Because with a running animation, you'll probably just keep looping it while it's still moving. Something that wouldn't be looping would be like a death animation or something, like after they die, you don't want them to re-fall over. So, okay. So after you've done that, if you want to go back into the scene tab, and then click on the character in the hierarchy, select it, and then open up the animation tab. So now we can actually modify the animation that we have set up inside the animator. The easiest way to do this is to, down here in the animation tab, there's this like red button. This is the recording mode. So if you click on it, it'll turn it on, and you'll see it kind of like has like a little red highlight now. And what this is doing is whatever you move in the scene, like on this character, it'll automatically track those changes within the animation software. So basically you can click down here as to what time you want to be in the animation, and then you can change it, like modify it a little bit, like change where the arm is moving, where the leg is moving, and it will automatically keep track of those changes. It just makes the animation process way easier, and it's very nice to use. But we'll go ahead and do some of that now. So with the running animation, the easiest way I think it is to make animations in this style is to like go do the endpoints first, like the two most outer points where the hands are fully extended, the legs are fully extended, and then do the opposite, and then try to kind of like tween, like fill in the in-between animations, just so it you have like a endpoint. It's a lot easier to animate something like in the middle of it as opposed to just the ends. I'll show you what I mean. So make sure you have like this white line is at the beginning at 0. And what we're going to do is just kind of rotate, take this arm and rotate it in such a way that we'll do with all the limbs, just kind of make him look like he's kind of running. Can't remember my form. I think we'll do this one forward. Oops. You can see there's a little bit of overlap here. It'll look better once you actually see them moving. So we got this left, it's a little hard to see with all the bones and stuff in the way, but the left leg is going forward and the right leg is going backwards. And then this right arm is going forward and the left arm is going backwards. And I guess we give him some head bobble too. So once you've done all that, if you can see down here, it has like all of these like bones in this list now, because every rotation that we made, it tracked it, and then it recorded it here in the animation frame editor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move or copy and paste all of these frames to the end of the animation. And the way that the easiest way to do that is just to like kind of click and drag over it. It'll select all of these as blue. And then I'm going to do Control Copy or Command if you're on Mac, I think. And then go to the end where it says 1 minute or 1 second. I mean, sorry, 1 second, and then do a Control Paste, Control V. And it's going to have the same starting and stopping point. And for a looping animation, this is going to be kind of needed because otherwise it's going to look really weird if he suddenly just cuts to the other part of the animation. So what this does is basically ensures that whatever we do in the middle here, it'll always loop back to that point. So now I'm going to click on the 30 like half-second mark in the middle, the 30, and this is where I'm going to flip all of these arms and legs so that they are the opposite. So like this head I'm putting this way, this arm, so now the right arm is going to be backwards, the left arm is going to be forward, the left leg is going to be backwards, and the right leg is going to be forward. And so if you if you move this, you can see that all of the body parts are automatically moving back and forth. They don't quite look perfect just because we haven't done anything in between. But now if you go to the left and hit the play button, you can see them at least just kind of moving back and forth. There's a few more steps just to make it look more fluid, but you can see how it kind of like automatically assumes where it should be. All of the bones are connected together as actual limbs would work, and you have somewhat of an animation. So obviously, if you're making a real game, you'd probably want to spend a lot more time kind of micromanaging all of these just to make them look nice. I'm just going to change a few things to make it look a little nicer. Like for example, when the foot is going backwards, typically it's going to go down faster so that it hits the ground. It kind of like pushes them on the ground, so if you're actually moving, it would look nicer. So the best way to do that is like kind of like about a third of the way in. Just going to modify this leg. Oops, not that one. So it's flat. And then 2/3 of the way through, I'm going to modify it again. Change his foot so it's flat. I mean, yeah, it doesn't look perfect, but it just kind of shows that you can also like kind of modify. It's nice because it automatically tweens, it automatically like generates those frames in between. But sometimes it doesn't do it perfectly because it can only assume so much, so you might have to go in and manually change things. Do the same with this leg. And yeah. I don't know, it still looks like crap, but you get the point. Once you've done that, you can click on that recording button again, and it should stop recording. Now it is blue, just so you don't accidentally modify something. And then if you hit play, as long as you dragged the character within the camera view, you can see it just starts playing and the animation just starts running. There we go. Yeah. There's a little bit of a snap. I don't know. Hopefully this is actually valuable. It'd be nice to see somebody use it in a game jam. Because I feel like this isn't that hard. Plus, it'll save you a lot of time on art, and it actually looks like kind of decent as well. So it also just kind of depends on your style.
Is it possible? This is kind of difficult. Is it possible to switch out what a bone controls partway through an animation? Like, let's say I had an arm moving in for the kill, I don't know, and at the last second I wanted to turn into a karate chop, and I had a fist sprite and an open hand sprite. Would it be possible to animate that using bones and have it change halfway through like that, or no?
I believe so. I honestly haven't gotten that far. I don't know. I mean, the way that comes to mind, I don't know if this is the most optimal way of doing it, but you could just switch out the entire thing. Or there might be a way just to switch out the sprite and have it covered, like as long as the like the texture that you made, as long as like that fist is in the same spot as like the previous one. That might work, but I actually don't know. I haven't done that. I'm sure there is a way, yeah.
Specifically, what tools in the skinning editor would I use if I wanted to make something bend, instead of just automatically generating the, what were they? They were the geometry.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of generating the geometry automatically, like let's say I wanted to
manually change all these?
Yeah, let's say I wanted to kick it old school and make sure that all of the, movable triangles were collected around like the joints.
Yep. Okay. So I have that pulled up. There are a few buttons over here. So you have edit geometry. Which just lets you kind of like select them. You can move this around. So you can see I'm stretching this particular part. So if you want this to be more like specific, this is probably what you should be doing. If I like delete this whole point, it'll remove it from the line.
Yeah, so now you got like a big rectangle up there.
Yep.
And you could add in a bunch more vertices around where the elbow would be, right?
Yep. So if you go from edit and go to create, if you just click anywhere on this line, you can see it kind of like bends a little bit to it. But now it creates another vertex here. And then once you've created those, you can click and drag them around. And then same with create edge. This time it lets you like draw an edge from one point to another. You could link these together, for example. Sorry. I don't know how many times this would be more useful as opposed to just creating more vertices. The create edge would probably be more useful. Like if this was really tightly compact, the auto geometry might not like notice that they're actually two separate things. So you might have to create an edge that way. And then split edge just lets you like put a vertex in between them. But it actually like kind of bends to it. So yeah, there are ways of manually editing it as well. And then same with the weights. I guess I can go over that quick too. So say that we wanted this arm to like bend less in the middle. If you take the weight brush, I'm going to change the size to like 12. So now you can see the circle is like the little outside. So I'm going to click this bone. And then I believe I'm gonna change the hardness to like 50, just so it's more apparent. But you can see it's becoming a lot more cyan the more I click on it. So now this bone influence is more like up here, which wouldn't be what you want normally, but this is just kind of just to show you how it works. And honestly, like if I wanted to, I could just make this entire thing cyan. So now this green bone acts like it's not even there. So if I were to rotate this, if I go to preview pose, and I rotate this, you can see that green bone has no influence anymore. There's only been a few times I really had to use this. Like something like down here would probably make more sense because, like, say you want this like blue bone to have more influence on the bottom part of the foot, or the purple one to have complete control over the foot. Like you don't want it bending at all. I would do it that way. So you go to like weight brush, and then like now this bone has complete control over the foot. Like it shouldn't bend. Same with like over here. So. I think bone influence is just a way to visualize, I believe. I don't think I've quite used this one as much, but yeah. Welcome. Okay. Any other questions? Cool. All right, so this concludes the workshop. If anybody has any questions that come up later, or if you have, need anything else, just like say something in the workshop chat or just DM me on Discord. I'm always happy to help. Without further ado, go forth, make games, and be awesome. Thank you, everybody.